I'm Coulter.
I'm Landon.
I'm Alex.
I'm Xavier. When we sat down, we knew we wanted to make a game, and we had to draw inspiration from somewhere. We wanted to focus on gameplay and mechanics, and settled on the boss rush format. For boss rush, if you don't know, is a series of difficult singular enemies, usually themed around some aesthetic, and spaced out by a form of hub or a series of simple challenges for the player to get used to the simple challenges and then be tested by the boss. After settling on the format, we began asking who would want to play this. With the popularity of the Souls genre and the Shadow of Colossus and Fury and games of the like, we focused on speedrunning clients on the outset. The advent of COVID brought this on even more. Speedrunning allowed for a player to replay the game in new and novel ways, attempting to rebeat speedruns and learn the game and play it in the most efficient way possible. In a sense, it offered an infinite amount of replayability. We aimed to base the mechanics around a higher skill cap and add more risk-reward mechanics to the game. We focused on making a game that was rewarding to play every time. Knowing that speedrunning is also a niche market, we endeavored to expand that base by raising the amount of casual users the game could appeal to. We targeted both family use and making it disability friendly wherever we could. With these, we focused on making something that had a high skill cap and could be played in a variety of ways, but remained something that you could pick up and put down without feeling defeated by the game.
Currently, everyone has games that are only made to be played once, causing them to be tired of the games that they own. But our game is made to be played over and over again, perfect for a quarantine.
Looking back at our parent persona, they wanted a game with minimal violence. To complete this task, we set out to create a game with a simple style that doesn't reflect reality in terms of violence and gore. Our style consists of simple shapes and a set of colors that are easy to keep track of. The highest amount of violence we have in our game is simple shapes intersecting to inflict damage on one another. To complete the task of being accessible to someone who is colorblind, we created an option to switch the whole color palette of the game, which should help them pick out the colors from one another. Our main task was creating a game that can be played in practice to increase your skill and hopefully beat the game faster. To do this, we created a defined set of challenges which have to be completed in order to beat the game. There are sections which the player will have to get from one area to another by jumping across platforms, and there are sections which contain bosses that take time to beat by using the two attacks, which also incorporate jumping and platforming. These bosses can be pretty difficult to beat due to their changing attacks and environments. To really show your sense of progression, there is a timer which keeps track of how long you've been playing, so you can compare your different times across different play sessions.
For the game engine, we chose Unity because of its ease of use and existing community resources. To work collaboratively, we employed the use of GitHub to host our work remotely. Originally, we planned to use the GitHub for Unity plugin. However, most of its functionality was redundant or obtuse, so we chose to use Git command line and GitHub Desktop instead. Although, it was useful for indicating which file was changed within the Unity editor. To create the bosses, we used primitive shapes that were already made available in Unity, and Blender for the triangle boss because Unity had no built-in tetrahedron primitive. The sound effects were created in Audacity by warping sounds that we could produce. We mainly stuck with Visual Studio for programming, but GitHub's Atom editor was useful for resolving merge conflicts when they were encountered. And now for the demo.
This is where the player first spawns in when they open the game. So you can see these are the instructions. We can use W to move forward, A to move to the side, S to move backwards, and D to move to the right. So the standard in a lot of games. And we can also use space to jump, but we can also double jump in our game. So if I'm currently in the air and I press spacebar again, then I jump off of nothing. And we can use left click, so we can hold this one down to fire our primary attack. And we can use right click to use our secondary attack. So this one I have to click every time I want to use it. And we're limited to having 3 of those at a time for balance reasons. Alright, this is the pill boss. This is the first boss that the player encounters. So you can see that's one of his attacks. He can shoot out this wall, and then he rushes towards the player and shoots it out again. So then after he's done that 3 times, then he spins around in a circle with the wall extended. So we deal damage by using our primary attack, which we can just hold down the left mouse button to fire at him in the direction that we're looking. And so at this part we can just jump over his wall, and then he goes back to the mode where he rushes towards us. And you can use your second attack, like we saw right there, to get him to rush into that, and then he'll take damage when he touches it. So now I can just stand a little bit out of his range and shoot him with my primary attack. So we don't want this boss to be too difficult, or else people get discouraged from playing. But you can see his wall slows down when he gets to a certain threshold of health. It's that the player doesn't get too used to the attack patterns. And so again, we can get him to just rush into our secondary attack if we know where he's about to move to. So you can see currently the wall just sped up after he's gotten to another certain threshold. So it's also a little bit taller now. So we can't just single jump over it, we have to double jump in order to prevent getting hit. So his health's almost out here, so we can use that attack a little bit more, and then he'll shoot out the wall. End it with a few more hits. Now the boss is dead, and we can go on to the next area of the game by going through the same door that we originally came through, but now it leads to the next level.
This is Hub 2. You start off with having to break a destructible floor in order to access the platform below. There are some falling platforms before you reach the middle of Hub 2, so that way if you take too much time, you'll have to wait until the platforms respawn. In the middle there's a spawn point that you can touch, so that way if you fall off in the middle of platforming, instead of having to retrace all your steps, you will respawn back in the middle. Approaching the cube boss, you have to go through a series of platforms that will get you ready for the cube boss's arena.
So this is the cube boss. So it's a cube that fires more cubes is what he is. So you can see this is where he fires one by one. So he fires from those 9 cubes that he has, he fires one at a time towards the player's position. And this is his triple shot attack, in which he fires 3 cubes at once compared to just 1 at a time. And so this part is when he's going after the player, but he can only move on the axes. And so you'll notice every time I want to hit him with my primary attack, I have to jump, or I can use my secondary attack, like right there. So if he walks into the secondary attack, then the cube boss takes damage. But I can also use it to absorb his attacks, like this. And so if I want to hide behind my secondary attack as like a shield, then I can do that. Alright, so you can see this level has moving platforms as well as falling platforms. So if I step on this one, you can see the color of it starts to change, which indicates that it's gonna fall pretty soon, like you saw right there. So we have to jump every time that we want to hit the cube boss, like I'm doing here. But we can also use the second attack as a way to kind of trick him into walking into it, because we know he's going to move on the axes if you played the game enough. And so then you can just make it so that if I just keep running away, I can keep using my second attack. And so this level keeps the player constantly moving on their feet, because if you stay in one spot too long, either he's going to get to you or the platform that you're on is going to fall, because it's a falling platform. So at this part, we're just trying to get down his health low enough so that we can unlock the next level. And so you can see right there, we were out of range. The bullets only have a certain range that we're able to fire to, so we had to get closer if we wanted to hit him. And so with a few more shots, he is now dead, and the level has been completed, and the door is now unlocked, so we can continue on to the final boss. And so if we go back through here, we have to go back through this part and travel back to that other door.
This is the triangle boss. It has 2 attacks. The first attack is where the triangle boss circles around the player and shoots projectiles towards the center. The player can either block these projectiles using their secondary attack, or dodge by jumping over the projectiles or running along in a circle. The second attack is where the triangle boss moves up and down, spraying projectiles towards the ground in every direction. The player can also dodge this, however, it is somewhat easier to use the secondary attack to block the projectiles, but you risk getting hit in the process. When the triangle boss is defeated, a short death animation will play as the portal to Hub 2 appears. When you enter the portal, you will appear back at Hub 2 at the triangle boss portal. And all the player has to do now is approach the wind portal through the pathway which has now appeared. And at the end, it thanks the player for playing the game, and thank you, the audience, for watching this presentation.